Sorry, I'm late for manifest.
I need my microphone. That helps a little bit. I forgot this is a live stream. What's going on, everyone? Good morning. I'm Kevin from Ohio.
We're the Manchester United fan club.
From Ohio.
From Ohio.
Welcome to the second attempt number deuce. Big old deuce. Biggest deuce ever. Starship Super Heavy Flight attempt number 2. Welcome, Rumbillions. Go ahead and muster up. Where you from? What you munching on? Even if it's disgusting. Even if it's English food. I've never been to London, so I just heard your food is terrible. All right. No offense. Locals members, I do have the locals chat open, so I can spot you more easily in the chat. What's going on? ARM. BFR ARM. A lot of acronyms. Thanks for tuning in. Speaking of London, what's going on, London?
You sound like you're from London.
I love that clip, man. Javron Phil's clone refill. Interesting. What time is the countdown? Well, technically the countdown's already started because they have started prop load just a little bit ago. We're just waiting on SpaceX's live stream to start. Could be any second, so we'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Good morning, the commentary. I like that name. That's creative, very unique. Happy 420 from America. What's up? Cheerful Dead. Keep on cruising. Patriot for life. From Perth, Australia. Sorry, I'm a little slow this morning.
Austria. Well then, good
day,
day,
mate. Coffee in Kentucky. Exciting time. Absolutely. We'll talk about the mission here in a second. Cricket from North Florida. Well, they're not launching this one from Florida, so I apologize. From Texas. That's where they're launching this one from, Texas.
I pulled him out of a place on Midgard called Texas.
What's going on, Josh and Bama?
You should go home to Greenbow, Alabama!
And Janube. I probably butchered that one, but that's how I roll. Howdy, y'all from Tennessee. I almost said Texas. I got Texas on the brain. So we'll be launching. We won't be launching anything. SpaceX will be launching this in about 45 minutes. Okay, so we're a little early, but that's good. It's better than being late, I guess. I see another Ohioan. What's up, Ohio? What's up, Trinity Waters, Oregon? Checking in. Good to hear from you. Good to hear from you. China Gum. I have no soundbite for China. I didn't even think you guys could be here. You're probably lying to me. But that's awesome. You're munching on gum. You did not miss anything. We are just waiting T-minus zeros in a little less than 45 minutes if it launches. Now, the first attempt, it was a valve issue with the first stage. And my prediction before any of this even started was they'd scrub before T-minus 1 minute. They scrubbed at about T-minus 17 minutes. And my second prediction for the second attempt is they are going to scrub after T-minus 30 seconds. So sometime between liftoff and T-minus 30 seconds, they're going to scrub on this one. I'm not a wizard. I could be wrong, even though I was right before. I could totally be wrong on this one. But it makes me a little, for lack of a better word, confident they're not going to launch just because they scrubbed so early last time. I mean, you could get to T-minus 0. The engines or it'd be T-minus 6 seconds technically. That's when the engines start cycling up and igniting in groups. I think they're doing 3 groups of ignitions back to back. They don't light them all up at once. And if any of those engines aren't like in nominal ranges, the rocket could just shut down. So we could be at like T-minus 1 second, T-minus 0 seconds, and it could just shut off. So if that happens, if we have a scrub today between T-minus 0 and T-minus 30, there's a strong chance I'll end up going to the next launch. I need to reach out to SpaceX, see if I can still get my media badge or not. So that will be a deciding factor. But yeah, hopefully it launches today. I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I'm pulling for this thing to launch. Okay. I'm shedding on my neck. I spent the last since Friday every day out working outside, and you would think by now I would have learned to put on sunscreen, and now I got Kevin flakes all over me. See that? That's me. Little pieces of me going everywhere. Western North Carolina. There we go. There's a Fort Worth, Texas in the chat. I think we're going for it today. Launch, baby, launch, says Mr. Random. All right. I'm pulling for you. Some of you don't like space travel, apparently. I don't know why you're here. I don't waste my time on things that I don't like or don't agree with. But that's just me. I tend to live my life the way I want to and not being all that way. I could say other things, but I'm trying to be a better person. That was my New Year's resolution. Knowing Elon, there's no way this doesn't launch on 420. Yeah, I know. Some people have speculated that they deliberately delayed it and blamed it on a valve just because they want to launch it today. And it is tempting to think that way. It could be that, like, SpaceX come across an anomaly during countdown, but they're like, yeah, screw it, we're launching this thing today. Elon's like, hit the go button. If you paid attention in the other days, I can't remember. It's been such a long week for me. I can't remember what day they attended. Was it Monday? Was the last attempt? I think. If you look closely at the command center or control center, Elon was in there. So we'll keep an eye out for him on this one as well. I think he was there with one of his kids. I didn't see Shotwell though. She's the one that's been in charge of the Starship program since Elon went to Twitter. What's going on, Alberta, Canada? Hello, buddy. Why is Canada way down here? I'm supposed to have these things in alphabetical order.
Welcome to French Canada.
I'll fix that later. I almost said Orange County, but it's Port Orange, Florida. Any second now, SpaceX should be starting their stream. Bueller, waiting on it some more. So I got like a bunch of tabs open on all these monitors. I'm just keeping an eye on things, so bear with me. I don't mean to be boring, but that's just my nature. Elon just tweeted, Starship on track to launch in about 37 minutes. Hold on to your butts. But not too tightly. Back to chat. What's up? Check that out. T. Villers. Thanks for that Rumble rant, dude. Yeah, for the support. Love your channel. Go Brandon! ! With a capital Go. Heck yeah, bro. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to put that toward my Boca Chica travel expenses if I get to travel to Boca Chica for this launch, if it scrubs today. If not, then I'll buy dog food with it. Oh yeah, speaking of, let's get the doggos on cam. Let's see if Wiley will take my jib. Jib. Ooh, SpaceX just started their live stream. Wiley, come here. Here he comes. Direct the day. Take my jib. He's looking at me like, may I? Yes, you may. Take my jib. Take my jib. Don't stare at me like I'm an idiot. You don't want it? You don't want it? Okay. You didn't take my jib. That's sad. Let's go big screen. He's super He's super excited about this. We're going to listen to a lot of the commentary this time, so I don't have to go back and watch this entire live stream again like I had to last time to find clips for tomorrow's episode of SpaceX in this news. But I'll be chiming in from time to time when I can. Look at that gimbalage action. Space porn, brah. Should be just about over. Don't want to turn the volume up yet because of the music. Almost there. This is a long intro. Yeah, doggos want to chase rockets. That'd be interesting to watch. They run out into the ocean. Here we go.
Good morning. On your screen is a live view of Starship as it awaits its second attempt at our first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas. If all goes well, we hope to see our Starship spacecraft and Super Heavy booster, which we collectively call Starship, lift off together for the first time in exactly 33 minutes from now. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a Space Operations Engineer here at SpaceX. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that we stood down from our initial launch attempt on Monday, and that was due to a frozen pressurization valve on the Super Heavy booster.
SpaceX teams investigated the issue and determined that this valve had some moisture in it, which caused the valve to freeze up when we were loading super chilled liquid oxygen into the booster.
Now, these valves are super important because we actually need a pressurant to go back into the tank as we consume propellant, and we actually use a pressurant that comes from the Raptor engines. It's heated down there and then put back in the tank. And so a frozen valve there would be a problem during the launch.
Yeah, and that's important. You can think of it like drinking out of a thin plastic water bottle. If you're chugging that water, it crinkles if you don't let air back into it. So we use that hot exhaust gas from the Raptor engines to refill that consumed volume as propellant is depleted. So
sounds complicated.
It was a great find by the countdown, and that's why we have a countdown, is to allow us to find those issues prior to liftoff. So all of that being said, our teams learned a lot over the last 48 hours, and we are ready to give it another go. As many of you know, Starship is the latest and largest vehicle developed to date by SpaceX. It will be the world's most powerful launch vehicle once fully developed and have twice the thrust of the Saturn V rocket. But the key breakthrough with Starship is that it will be fully reusable and capable of carrying up to 150 metric tons of payload to orbit in a reusable configuration and up to 250 metric tons when expendable.
Now, for context, Falcon 9 is only partially reusable. We recovered the largest part of the rocket, that's called the first stage, but we don't recover the second stage. And Falcon 9's heaviest payload...
To answer your question, the vacuum engines on Starship, the upper stage, they do not gimbal. They're fixed.
Metric tons on Starship is an order of magnitude greater in terms of the payload capacity. Now, for today's test, we will be the first of many as we work towards transitioning Starship from a developmental into an operational program. And the primary objective today is to gather as much data as we can around the fully integrated vehicle. Now, while we have flown the Starship spacecraft in the past, it is going to be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity for us to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
We are so excited for this. The purposes for today's flight, we will consider any data received that helps inform and improve future builds of Starship as a success. From a milestone standpoint, our main goal is to clear the pad. Every milestone beyond that is a bonus. The further we fly, the more data we can collect.
Now, if it does all go well, then we'll expect the Super Heavy to light up its 33 Raptor engines at the base of the vehicle and lift off, clear the pad away down from Starbase, in Starbase, Texas. And then it'll go into ascent. About 3 minutes into its ascent, we're going to expect to see Super Heavy separate from the
space
Starship.
is supposed to be
It'll perform
upward.
a flip maneuver, and then it'll execute a boost back
Derp.
burn, and we're going to be targeting a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6 second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for about an hour at altitudes ranging between 150 and 250 kilometers before re-entering Earth's atmosphere and make its own hard landing in the Pacific Ocean about 250-ish kilometers offshore. Now, we are not really expecting many camera views after separation. That is to say, if we even make it that far. But we do promise that whatever views we do have, we will bring them to you live.
Yep. We have a couple of ground stations along the way. So if we are able to get good telemetry, assuming we make it that far into the ascent, then of course those will be available on the stream. And also worth mentioning today, like the whole just getting the vehicle off the pad is a complex endeavor. We are going to be trying to reduce complexity by attempting those hard water landings instead of trying a normal landing like you're used to on Falcon 9.
Exactly. We are not attempting to recover these vehicles. So yeah, hard landings in store for both.
Now, in a little bit, we'll take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad. But first, the teams have been doing a tremendous amount of work over the last few months. In fact, there's a
Hawthorne
great shot
headquarters.
of our Hawthorne team up here bright and early to watch the launch. Teams have been prepping really for the last few days, especially to try to get into today's launch attempt.
And here you can see a live view of the South Padre Amphitheater where both SpaceX employees, friends and family, and members of the public are gathering to watch Starship lift off. And we can see the crowds are gathering there as well. And
if I were
course,
at the launch, that's where I would be.
The SpaceX team.
Look for
you
Elon.
See them,
He's probably in the
screen,
corner over
members
here
of our launch
somewhere.
command, our Star Command Center. That is our Starbase Launch Control Center.
Yep, those are the operators today who are going to be reviewing all the data and, of course, giving us the go, no-go poll, checking the status to try to get in today's
drone pilot showing
just
off
around 27 minutes from now.
And one thing I do want to mention, I misspoke. It's not the South Padre Amphitheater. It's the Cameron County Amphitheater.
Now, the entire Starship structure on your screen is made from stainless steel. When it's stacked, it stands about 120 meters tall. It's about 9 meters around. And we have this awesome video that shows you just how big that is. You can see one of our technicians there doing some final prep work in advance of today's
rocket
test. And man, there's the
you've ever
120-meter monster.
The person just keeps getting smaller and smaller. Now, just like Falcon 9, Starship has 2 stages, which we'll talk more about those in a minute. In addition to those 2 stages, Starship actually has a 3rd stage, which we call Stage 0. It consists of all the launch pad infrastructure built around the rocket, as you can see there on your screen, and it's truly an engineering feat in its own right.
Yeah, we've got a great shot there of the various different components of it. The pad, the infrastructure, all that is required to get into filling the tanks. Now, let's talk about the Super Heavy. Its name says everything. It's super, it's heavy, it's super heavy. When it's operational, it'll be responsible for providing the power to escape that mighty gravitational pull of Earth that we've got here and take Starship into orbit.
The booster itself stands about 70 meters tall and is roughly the same height as a fully integrated Falcon 9, which is just so crazy to me. But this Super Heavy booster has a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger engines. We have a beautiful view here. This is one of my favorite views that we're going to get today. Those are
You can see the umbilicals are connected to these outer rims of Starships or Raptor 2s here. That's because the launch pad itself is responsible for the ignition of these engines, okay? And that's just because they wanted to make the booster less complicated, but more specifically, more importantly, way less. So that's a pretty cool feature of this
as it comes back
vehicle.
later in today's flight.
Yeah, and when we say gimbal, it's basically tilting or almost wiggling the engines a few degrees in either direction.
These
to
outer
allow
20
the
are
booster
fixed.
to steer itself, just as you said, Shiva.
And we'll get some great shots later of actually a wiggle test that we perform ahead of liftoff, just to make sure that all of those engines are able to control their full range of control authority.
One thing to note, those Raptor engines are completely designed and manufactured in-house. They are, as many of you know that have been following along, they are a reusable methane oxygen staged combustion type engine. So It's a lot of words there. And ultimately, that staged combustion means that we combust the propellant in stages. That we kind of pre-combust them in a pre-burner. And by doing so, it allows the engine to be more efficient, i.e. more powerful.
Yeah. Now, like Falcon 9, the Super Heavy has 4 grid fins to assist with orienting itself in its return back to Earth. We got a shot of them there beneath the Starship's aft flaps. Now, as we talked about earlier, Super Heavy is not going to be attempting a land landing today. But with this flight test, we're still trying to get as much data as we can. We're focusing on the fundamental systems and operations, so that's the liftoff portion. But we are going to try to get some data on how the fins work and for that water landing that Super Heavy is going to be making after ascent.
I love that great view of the fins there. Now, Starship, or the spacecraft, is the second stage, and it makes up the top portion of the vehicle. It's designed for carrying passengers and cargo to Earth orbit and beyond. It stands about 50 meters tall, which is a little taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's comprised of 6 Raptor engines, 3 sea level and 3 vacuum engines, which are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. And they provide a maximum of 258,000 tons of thrust in vacuum. Spacecraft is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude, which you can see those 2 forward flaps there on your screen now. So they help control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable precise landing at the intended location. Now, one thing we got to mention, the heat shields. They are iconic. Starship is wrapped in a heat shield, which is composed of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during that atmospheric entry. And that's really important because the temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The hex-shaped tiles, like the ones that Shiva and I have, roughly make up about 2/3 of the vehicle. We can see that we have some different
She has
shapes.
her
Mine
Apple
is
Watch
slightly
covered.
curved. As you can imagine, it sits on the curved portion
for
of the
privacy
Starship
reasons.
vehicle.
Now, the one that I've got is a hexagonal tile that's more flat, and it's really used for the flatter structures on the vehicle. And we need a heat shield because when you're coming back in from re-entry, we're going supersonic. We're compressing all the air ahead of us.
We'll probably talk about the
That
header
ends up
tanks in a
causing lot
minute.
of
And
heating
if you look
along
at
the
her
surface,
shirt,
and
Kate's
without
shirt,
a
you'll
heat
see
shield, that would
those
go
a
straight
diagram of those
into the
header
structure.
tanks that are in the nose
one
cone.
thing that's amazing
right
to
up
me,
here.
especially when I first picked up one of these heat shield tiles, is that they're so light. They almost feel like they're made out of foam. They're that light, and they kind of sound like it too. And one thing that we do want to mention, in order to reject the maximum amount of heat during that entry, like Shiva was just saying, they're black, and that's because black helps reject that heat that is building up on the exterior of the heat shield.
Now, Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing as opposed to taking off and landing like an airplane. And that's because that's really important because we don't have runways on the moon or Mars. Fortunately, at those destinations, the gravity is not as high as it is here on Earth. On Mars, the gravity is just 1/3 of what it is here on Earth, and on the moon, it's just a 1/6. So in both of those cases, Starship, with just its engines, can take off without needing the Super Heavy booster like we do need here on planet Earth.
Now, for
Earth is a huge gravity well. I'm going to take a minute and give some shout outs here. What's going on? Locals members, Sunspark, good morning from Utah. Fox Pup, usual suspect, back in the chat. And C Clane 09, thank you so much for that $10 Rebel rant. Love the show. Well, I love you. All right. Appreciate you, brother. So if you're new to SpaceX launches, you don't tune in with Falcon 9 launches with us. One of the things you might be asking yourself is, why is it so frosty? Why is it smoking like that? Well, that's because hey, it's John Inspector. We'll get to him in a second. That's because this rocket, its propellant is liquid methane and liquid oxygen. So to get them in the liquefied form, they chill them because their natural state is gas. And as they chill them, it condenses the molecules. They load them onto the rocket, but since the rocket itself isn't a refrigerator or a freezer, it starts to those gases, the liquids start to warm up and boil off into gases. And as they're loaded on there, it condenses on the hull, and then that condensation or the frost on the hull evaporates with the warmer Texas air, and that's why it's smoking like that. But you'll see it vent sometimes. It purges, and that's because it has to release some of that excess boil off gas. Otherwise, it could rupture the tanks. Okay. So, in case you were wondering. Back to you, John.
Well, it's onto the booster at T-minus 1 hour and 39 minutes. At T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, we began propellant loading of the ship. The second stage you can see on your screen right there. Now, propellant loading of the Starship's second stage main tanks completed at about the T-minus 27 minute mark, at which time we then began loading the 2 header tanks in the nose of the second stage. Now, at T-minus 3 minutes, when the first stage super heavy propellant loading completes, that means we'll have all the propellant on the rocket, and the vehicle will be fully loaded with over 10 million pounds of propellant. Now, right now, at T-minus 19 minutes and counting from liftoff, the weather and winds are looking good. We have been watching the ground level winds. They're at 18 miles an hour. As the morning continues, they will increase, but that is below our limits right now. We're also looking at upper altitude winds. We're waiting for one more balloon, but we believe that we're going to be go. On the launch vehicle itself,
A lot of factors.
the teams, the good news,
outside the rocket
not working
itself.
any issues right now. But if for some reason we do not make our test flight today, if we have to hold, we have a backup launch window. However, we're not sure when it would be. It could be 24 or 48 hours after today. It'll depend on how far we get into the countdown. But right now,
try to
heading
launch
for
on
a
the weekend?
T0 at 8:28 Central, 13:28 Universal Time. Kate, everything is looking good.
Awesome news. Now, in order to make life multiplanetary, we need a fully reusable vehicle that's capable of carrying a huge amount of cargo and a lot of people to orbit and have a pretty quick turnaround. The idea is to effectively reuse launch vehicles just like airplanes.
Yeah, imagine if you had to wait for a new airplane to be constructed every time you wanted to fly. You'd rarely go anywhere. And
all right, we know this stuff. We know why the rocket needs to be reusable. So, yeah, the worst thing that could happen is Starship blows up the pad, right? Because that pad, which they call Stage 0, is hugely complicated. It takes a long time to build. Coming up on T-minus 17 seconds, that's the mark where they scrubbed last time about that time. So if we pass it, then they're doing better than last time. That's the thing. But here's the thing. If they do scrub, which, yes, I'm still in the third time's a charm camp. If they do scrub, just look at it this way. And I've been saying this for years. At least it gives you something to look forward to. All right. So I guess I'm a glass is half full kind of guy when it comes to this. Right now you're seeing Starlink version 2, generation 2 satellites. They're deploying the minis. They've already done 2 groupings of the minis of Gen 2. They haven't done the fully stacked Gen 2 yet. They need Starship for that because they're so big, but you just saw them deploying there in that animation like a Pez dispenser. And I didn't say this in our last couple live streams, but I finally, after like 14, 15 months, I finally got word from SpaceX that my Starlink kit is ready. So it's on its way right now. I just found out yesterday it's being shipped. So I'm super excited for that. Maybe on Locals, I'll put up a video of me installing it. That way, if I fall off the roof, you guys can have a good laugh. Right now, you're seeing Starhopper, which was, as you see on the left-hand side of your screen, back in August 2019. We live streamed this as well. I actually went out to Boca Chica to watch this, but this is why I'm so careful now with going to Texas to watch these first flights. I went out there, but as I was getting on the plane, SpaceX reported that they were going to push the test a couple days. So I was like, crap. So I went all the way out there knowing that I just was wasting my time and money. But it was still a good trip because I got to meet a bunch of locals who I'm good friends with now. And then we have SN8, and I'll just let SpaceX explain it.
Ascent and landing flip maneuver. 2 words, belly flop. The SN8 prototype rose to an altitude
What's up, Michael Masser?
of 12.5 kilometers or 7.8 miles and conducted a belly flop maneuver, which you see there, during its descent. While it didn't stick the landing, the test was a major milestone in the development of Starship. In fact, we should be able to see that unfortunately failed landing. Boom. It was fun to watch, though.
Rapid unscheduled disassembly, but learned a lot of data. Now, the testing continued on to prototype serial number 9. It took a 10-kilometer flight. That's about 6.2 miles up. In February of 2021, we had a nominal ascent. We executed the engine cutoffs once we got to the top of the altitude window. We did that belly flop maneuver, which is so much more fun to say than controlled descent, aerodynamic maneuver. That was all stable, but unfortunately, we had a dramatic end on this flight as well. We had a failure on one of the engines that resulted in another pretty large fireball. But what was really cool about both of those flights was how much we learned just between serial numbers 8 and 9, and how quickly we were able to achieve our primary objectives in those 2 flights. In addition to that, we got so much data that demonstrated control of the vehicle in that subsonic regime.
Ultimately, we performed 9 Starship high-altitude test flights in total. And then, as you see on your screen there, in May of 2021, SN-15 launched from Starbase, reached an altitude of about 10 kilometers, performed a number of maneuvers, and safely returned to the launch site. This was the first Starship prototype to fly, control its descent, safely land, and be recovered in one piece.
And people were cheering like crazy.
Of course they were. So those liftoffs that you just saw Starship do on your screen, using just a few engines, 3 Raptor, those were Raptor 1 engines. The Raptor 2 that they're using today is more powerful, and the most we've ever seen as far as boomage goes is Booster 7 do its static fire. And although they wanted to do a 33 engine static fire, one engine never lit up and another engine shut down right after ignition. So it was a 31 engine static fire. And that was at like 50 to 60% throttle capacity. Today at liftoff, you'll see, hopefully, all 33 Raptor 2 engines at 90% throttle capacity. So this thing's going to leave the pad faster than you expect. And there is no payload on board Starship. Keep that in mind, right? It's just steel and propellant. Eric Beavers, what's going on, man? Mr. Poopy Pants. Welcome to the Starlink Club. Yay. Good for me. All right. Thank you so much for the support, man. BFR Eric, my biggest support. I appreciate you, brother. Love you. Tell the fam I said word up.
Next attempt.
Yeah, we learned a lot from actually putting the vehicle through flight-like tests. Even the test on Monday gave
Hello
us
to
an
you too,
opportunity
Concord.
learn
Good to
more
see you,
about
man.
the vehicle into today's launch attempt, and so far things are looking really good. Now, we are continuing into our countdown. We're about T-minus 12 minutes to go. I think it's a perfect time for another check-in with John Insparker. How's it going, John?
Well, Shiva, the good news is that the nets are quiet. The teams are currently working. No significant launch vehicle issues. You can see the T clock there on your screen, T-minus 12 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. Propellant loading is continuing on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. You can see the graphic on the left-hand side of the screen. Most recently, we began loading liquid oxygen and liquid methane fuel into the header tanks on Starship. Those are 2 small tanks just underneath the nose of the second stage. Now that started at T-minus 27 minutes. That'll be wrapping up at about that will be wrapping up about T-minus 9 minutes.
It's a hard gig, man.
Now the Starship
Speaking live,
second stage main fuel
get
and
lost
LOX
in your own
tanks
thoughts.
are loaded for flight right now. The Super Heavy first stage booster propellant loading is continuing, and that'll go till about T-minus 3 minutes. We're underway with engine chill as we get ready for T0, and we're also configuring the launch pad for liftoff. The booster hold downs have been unlatched. They'll be ready to retract at liftoff. And the second stage quick disconnect is beginning its configuration for release. The methane and liquid oxygen propellants currently going to the second stage go through that quick disconnect. That's that arm that reaches out from the tower to the base of the second stage. The SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard. Good news is we've not heard any reports of boats in the safety perimeter.
Good, they learned. So you heard John just a second ago talking about engine chilling. And that's because it's like warming up the engine on your car, all right? But it's the exact opposite. Instead of warming up your car to heat the engines, in this case, they are cooling the engines down because, again, this propellant is super frozen, all right? It's super chilled. So they don't want to completely stress out those engines by just, out of nowhere, out of the, I guess, to be a little redundant, just, shocking it with the coldness of the frozen propellant, feeding those engines and cracking things or whatever. So they chill the engines first. That way it's not so much of a shock factor. Cool. I could have explained that better, but I'm not good at my job. What can I say?
Starships and Super Heavies. Last year, the Starbase team produced 4 Starship Super Heavy boosters and 5 Starships, along with their 200th Raptor 2 engine, and they're only scaling up from there, Kate.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that for 2023, production has 5 boosters and 8 Starships going.
It shows I'm live right here.
It's incredible, and it's important.
There might be a little delay with the Rumble live
in
stream.
basically
on
the
Rumble's end.
manufacturing line, so that we
Or on
have
your end.
product ready to go as soon as we're done with this test.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, I mean, we talked about how Starship is an order of magnitude more payload.
Everyone
orbit.
try refreshing.
But if
I'll
you're gonna
refresh
go
as
set up
well.
a base
All right,
on
just
the
to make
moon or
sure
Mars-
we're live. All right, that's important.
With this test.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, I mean, we talked about how Starship is an order of magnitude more payload to orbit. But if you're going to go set up a base on the moon or Mars, you're going to need thousands of metric tons of propellants. And so you're going to need a fleet of vehicles that's capable of doing that.
Yeah, one thing to
We
note,
all want to get to
Starbase
the scrub at the same
employs more
time.
than
Refresh your
1,800
screens.
employees. It's the largest employer
Kevin,
in
you're
the
such a
area,
negative
in fact.
Nancy.
And we're very thankful to Cameron County for
Yeah, I know
being
that
so
guy. I know that
supportive.
guy. I'm just
This
kidding. I don't know
is
anyone.
a view
I have no
from
friends.
the Cameron County Amphitheater.
Bunch of
and
SpaceX employees.
There's a crowd there,
And their friends.
and you could tell by the energy here in Hawthorne as well that everyone's getting really exciting. I feel my own heart rate going up and up.
I know. It must be really, really exciting to go see this. And I mean, just the sheer amount of power on Starship, you're going to feel it down there when this thing lifts off from the pad. We've actually got a great shot here of the natural surroundings around the pad. Oddly enough, most of the pads end up being around sort of wild locations like this. But coming up on T-minus 8 minutes, I think it's another good time for check-in.
So yeah, your guys' chat, you said your stream is showing 9 live, SpaceX showing 8:30. Well, I got that chat about 8:25. So yes, it is just the latency between Rumble's live stream. Okay. YouTube has the same issue. It might not be as drastic, but it's live for me, but by the time you guys see it, it's a little behind. It's fine. We're here to experience this scrub together. All right, that's what's important.
Pressurization on the first stage. In fact, we are just now closing out header tank load on the second stage. Now with the header tanks loaded and closed out, that means we're down to just the first stage to finish loading. That'll finish about T-minus 3 minutes. And at that point, when both stages are loaded, we will have the 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board. Now in the next few minutes, the guidance system will begin its final alignment for flight during a quiet period when the rocket's not doing anything. The automated flight termination system will be armed, and a final TVC checkout will be performed. Those are the engine wiggles, and hopefully we'll be able to see that with the cameras underneath the vehicle and maybe even the second stage engines. And there's a view looking underneath the super heavy first stage.
Sexy
with the
looking up that
33 Raptor
skirt.
engines.
Very arousing.
Now, a reminder as we continue counting down, if we do need to hold, the point where we hold the clock would be at T-minus 40 seconds. We can pause there. Typically in the past, if we need a little bit more time to finish final checkouts or do some pressurization of the onboard storage tanks, that's where we would hold. But currently,
Bitrate
we're not
output is
hearing a need to
4800.
hold. So at 6 minutes,
Showing
27
green.
seconds, everything looks good. And of course, Kate Shiva, as we get close, we're going to get into the engine ignition sequence of 33
OBS.
Raptors, and that's going to be something new for everybody.
I cannot wait for that moment. So for those of you that are familiar with how we launch Falcon 9 rockets, you probably know that we light all 9 of those first stage Merlin 1D engines all at once. It's pretty different than what we do, or what we're attempting to do today. We're actually going to be igniting those 33 engines in banks or clusters, and that sequence starts at T-minus 6 seconds.
Yeah, and the ignition sequence is a little bit different, both in terms of the timing and also the ignition method. So on Falcon 9, we use a chemical called T-Tab. It's a pyrophoric material, so that means when you mix the two together, it produces a flame that kicks off that green characteristic spark on Falcon 9 missions. But actually on Starship, we use electrical ignition systems. Many of those are integrated on the ground system here. And the electrical ignition, we start lighting the banks at T-minus 6 seconds, and then over the next 4 seconds, the 3 sets of banks will ignite and eventually bring the booster up to a thrust to weight greater than 1 and hopefully ascent.
Super exciting. Like we said, pretty different from our Falcon 9 launches, and so this will be the first time that any of us have gotten to see this type of integrated test flight with both the Starship and the Super Heavy booster.
Past the 5-minute mark.
As we get into T-minus 5 minutes.
We want to remind everyone that success today is anything.
Remember, it's gonna scrub between T-minus 0 and T-minus 30 seconds. All right, that's my prediction. Yeah, and I apologize if you hear any rattling. It's because I keep noticing that my legs are shaking, and it's shaking my entire desk. All right, it's unintentional. It's just me being super excited.
A great shot of the pad there. A great shot of the quick disconnect on the second stage. You can see the frost line on the booster where that methane is fully topped up. I think we're just coming up on the last few minutes here of propellant fill on the booster. Now that quick disconnect is going to separate away as we actually get into the ignition sequence, but it's providing electrical connections now and also providing the propellants that we're loading into the vehicle.
Yeah. We're just now under 4 minutes until liftoff of the Starship flight test. We've been following along for what honestly seems like days and days now, but really it kind of comes down to years. It has been a long time to get to where we are today.
2018 in Texas is when they started building this rocket.
We have the opportunity to hold, if necessary, at 40 seconds, and we are able to hold there for about 15 minutes, or up to 15 minutes, and still be able to lift off.
Yeah, and that's a little bit different from Falcon for the propellant sequence on Falcon that we don't have the opportunity to hold. So that's a cool new capability on Starship.
Yes, everyone turn up your home surround sound system, really amp up your bass, all right? Starship may lose some heat shield tiles, but your goal should be to lose some roofing tiles. Let's do it.
Right now is
Let's do this, scrub.
Propellant loading on the first stage. That should be wrapping up here shortly. In fact, it looks like fuel fill and drain valves are coming closed. That means first stage is fully loaded, second stage fully loaded, and that 10 million pounds of propellant on board the Starship launch vehicle.
Did I pick an even day in November?
I want to take a quick moment to say that the crowd energy here is electric.
That.
I feel like it's Falcon Heavy test demo all over again.
And hopefully you'll hear us as we get into the plus count. But right now, next activity is coming up. The flight termination system arms at T-minus 2 minutes. Thrust vector control checkouts at T-minus 2 minutes. And then after that, major activity will be the T-minus 40-second gate. There's a view looking up at the 33 Raptor engines. There are 20 engines in a circle on the outside, and as Shiva said earlier, 13 engines on the center. Those are the ones that gimbal.
2-minute warning. If this thing goes, we need it to get away from the pad. That's the main objective. No damage to stage 0. Prepare for the scrub.
I don't think I've ever seen someone so excited for TBC wiggles.
33 Raptor 2 engines on the first stage alone. 6 up top in Starship.
Love this view. These are the 33 Raptor
Do the math.
engines at
39.
the base of the Super Heavy booster.
There they gimbal. There they gimbal.
Now.
We're
Getting
currently
me all
inside
wiggly.
90 seconds. Next major activity, T-minus 40 seconds. That is a gate, a decision point. We're waiting. Possibility the propulsion team may need a few minutes. Flight termination system is armed for flight. We're getting ready for T-minus 1 minute and counting. No, T-minus 1 minute.
All right, here we go. So much better than last time.
Next, we'll see.
Get excited, Jeb.
T-minus 40 seconds for final checks of the vehicle.
They passed the hold at T-minus 40. Prepare for scrub. Biggest rocket in history, guys. You're about to watch it scrub. Kevin, shut up. All right, we're within T-minus 30 seconds. I'm accurate. Oh!
Flight director has called a hold. We are recycling. For the moment, we'll see where they move the clock back to. They could hold at T-minus 40 seconds. They could go to an earlier point. Give us a minute to listen into the nets, and we'll see if we can get you more information to share.
Do I really have to say it? Do I? I have to. That was underneath T-minus 30 seconds. Kevin is a wizard. They might not scrub it, though. It might just be they're recycling it right now, so there's still a chance this thing could launch. All right? Everyone just start breathing again, okay? Work on your mantras. I know Kevin's so happy about being right. Yeah, it's because it's. I live with the lawyer wife. Being right does not happen as much as it should. Okay. Look who decided to join us. He's super stoked about it as well, aren't you, Wiley? And Jeb. Listen, the only reason why I want to be right, besides, the bragging points, is because I would like to go down there and watch this. They made it within T-minus 30 seconds, which means I'm going to go to the next one if unless there's unforeseen circumstances like SpaceX doesn't want to give me my badge, or, Southwest just canceled all their flights the other day, and that's who I use to fly. So, there's still more factors that play into it, but my intention is to go to the next launch attempt if it scrubs today. All right. Now that we've gotten underneath T-minus 30 seconds, it will be a sign from God. All right. That there's no way I could accurately predict this on my own. It's God telling me, Kevin, get down there. And if it launches today, it's God telling me, Kevin, you're not going. Clearly, God is never wrong. My dog is in the same mode, but that's no surprise since he's 14 years old. That's a ripe old age, man. Tell the doggo I said hello. You're just tuning in with us, congratulations. You would have missed the launch, but it held at about T-minus 26 seconds. They're currently looking at recycling it, so it could still launch. But Kevin says it's going to be a scrub.
Again, here at the Hawthorne webcast desk, we're holding a T-minus 40 seconds. What we've heard so far is we have a couple of issues we're working. One is the booster tank pressurization. Final pressurization was just a little bit long. That's not unusual. We've held at T-minus 40 seconds before to pressurize. That appears to have been resolved. At the same time on the second stage, they're working some final purging. We should know very shortly if that is cleared and if we'll continue the countdown.
Everyone, especially that person, is excited to keep going. Like John said,
someone's
we should
trying
know
to
shortly
tease.
If we are able to continue. But as we mentioned before, we are able to hold up to 15 minutes and still be able to lift off today.
Yeah, on Falcon 9, it's a little bit different.
Start your
Once
watches.
we start propellant loading, we pretty much have to go at the targeted time. Otherwise, the propellants can warm up, and we may not have the performance for that particular mission profile. It's a little bit different on Starship.
Folks, if I can interrupt.
Yeah.
It looks like they're clearing all the flags, and we're going to release at T-minus 40 seconds.
Okay.
That
Here
is
we
amazing
go.
news.
Amazing.
Team working quickly through their issues on first and second stages.
If
I'm
this
sure
is
all
scrubbed,
the
I hope
rehearsals,
you
and
go and they don't
simulations
give
that
you
they've
your
been doing
badge.
prepared them to evaluate this data quickly.
It's
to try to
fairly
get us
likely
in for
that could be
today's
the
launch
case.
attempt.
It might launch, you guys. It might launch. Looks
For
like
those
they're
of
going
you
to try.
just joining, we have a brief hold at the T-minus 40 second mark. The team is resolving one issue with the bleed purge on the stage 2 Raptors. Like John just said, the teams are quickly working that, and it looks like the flags are being cleared as we speak. So we should be able to resume the launch countdown any moment now.
And it's worth noting on Starship that once we resume the countdown, it restarts from the 40-second period, and then we keep going unless another condition pops up. So stick around, because Starship could be going here real soon.
So many things. So many working parts.
That's for sure.
The checklist, the
Amazing
pre-flight
views here coming
has
to
to
us
be
from
pages and
Starbase,
pages
Texas.
long.
Cheering to call the start again.
I don't believe them. Okay, I believe them now. Here we go.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Here we go. It's away! We did it! Woo! Okay. Look at it go! Look at it go, Willie Bear! Hey! It has cleared the pad. It's safe.
Booster upper chamber pressure nominal.
Look at it. Keep going, baby. Keep going, baby.
Starship vehicle
to the moon. I mean, to space.
First stage engines nominal. What a sight from the ground cameras at Starbase.
Look at that roll.
Twice the thrust of the Saturn V heading to space.
Acquisition of signal, Corpus Christi.
We're throttled down and throttled back up.
Oh my gosh.
Going through the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Oh, look at that, man. Looks like a spaceship, an alien spaceship. Just hovering there.
Increases.
Look at all the Raptors that are out.
Is decreasing.
Max Q.
Lessening stress on the vehicle. The call out. Max Q now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 or 7 engines are out, it looks like. That, I don't know if that's right. Yeah, look at them at the bottom left.
Seconds into flight. Our next major activity is going to be shutdown of the first stage. The Houston tracking station now acquiring the vehicle.
We got another engine back up.
With shutdown, we will get separation of Starship from Super Heavy and ignition of the Starship engines. When Starship separates, we light up 6 engines in a staggered sequence. And if all goes well, those 6 engines will burn for almost 6.5 minutes. Onboard view from Starship.
Look at that. Inside the engine skirt.
The Raptor engines on the second stage as we prepare for stage separation. Now after stage separation, the first stage will flip and begin a boost back maneuver for landing in the Gulf.
Uh-oh. Come on. Come on. We're spiraling. Oh no, it's pointing backwards. Look at the bottom.
Continuing to fly. 2 minutes, 40
Look at the
seconds.
speed.
Let's get ready for main engine cutoff.
It's like Kerbal. It's going the wrong way. It's correcting.
The flip for stage separation.
What? I'm so confused. They're just going for it. They're not terminating it. They're just letting it happen. This thing's not getting to Hawaii. It doesn't look like they're going to try separating it.
As of right now, we are awaiting stage separation, where Starship should separate from the Super Heavy booster.
She's coming down. Look at the altitude.
Yeah, Kate, right now it looks like we saw the start of the flip, but obviously we're seeing from the ground cameras the entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now. Obviously, this is does not appear to be a nominal situation.
Yeah, it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
Yep, they blew it. Self-destruct. Please clap.
And there, as you saw, as we promised, an exciting end to the Starship inaugural integrated test flight.
They're going to get a lot of data off of that for sure. And that's what this mission was all about, just data collection and not blowing up the pad.
Absolutely pumped to clear the pad and make it this far into the test flight, the first integrated flight of the booster and the Starship vehicle.
Live view
There's
there
Elon.
of
What
our
up,
control
Elon?
center at Starbase.
He's sad.
Which we refer
Elon's
to as
saying,
Star Command.
rocket's not supposed to blow up and kind.
As we said before, obviously we wanted to make it all the way through, but to get this far, honestly, is amazing.
Well, if you're just joining us, Starship just experienced what we call a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or a RUD, during ascent. But now this was a development test. This is the first test flight of Starship, and the goal was to gather the data, and as we said, clear the pad and get ready to go again. So you never know exactly what's going to happen, but as we promised, excitement is guaranteed. And Starship gave us a rather spectacular end to what was truly an incredible test thus far.
Now, as we mentioned at the start of today's program, any and all the data that we collected during the test is going to help us with further development of Starship, and it's going to improve the vehicle's reliability as SpaceX seeks to make life multiplanetary. It's really worth noting that the flight path was designed to be over water and all the air and sea space. Along with that flight path and those surrounding areas were cleared in advance of the test. And of course, we're going to be coordinating with local authorities for the recovery operations.
But honestly, what an exciting morning. Oh my gosh. We had a successful liftoff from Starbase, Texas at 8:28 a.m. Central Time. We cleared the tower, which honestly was our only hope. We cleared the tower, and all the data that we collected all the way through all those Raptor, those 33, although I think we saw that 3 Raptor engines were out, but we got all that data, and we got so far as to hoping to see the Starship, the second stage, separate from the first stage, the Super Heavy booster. And unfortunately, we didn't make that happen, but that's okay. It was the first integrated launch, and honestly, today was amazing.
Absolutely incredible day. We made it through a number of those initial test objectives with getting booster ascent, getting all the way through the countdown, working some issues at the end. Like, really fantastic day.
Got through the gate at T-minus 40 seconds on the second try. Everything released, the hold downs, the quick disconnect arms, everything moves out of the way. And then
Stage 0 did its job.
Off of the pad, through max Q, all the way up to stage separation, even starting into the prep for stage sep. And then, as we say, a lot of excitement.
Yep. Honestly, my face has had a smile on it since liftoff, and now my face hurts. Now, since we don't have any insights on the cause of our rapid unscheduled disassembly at this point, we're going to end our webcast here. Teams will continue to review the data and work toward our next flight test. But before we go, a big congrats to the entire SpaceX team on an exciting first integrated flight test of Starship. And of course, a shout out to our viewers. We appreciate you joining us. And as always, we thank you for your interest in Starship, SpaceX, and your ongoing.
All right, I just want to bring it back and see when those engines started going out. Okay, so this is the first indication we have of the number of engines, and at the very beginning, 3 of them are out. Now, did they light up? Probably. They probably lit up. Otherwise, I don't think the rocket would have launched. However, keep in mind, as we were speaking earlier, maybe SpaceX really just wanted this thing to lift off today because of 420. It lit up on 420, and they were like, screw it, just go. But I think these engines lit up and then immediately shut off. And then as the flight progressed, more of them went out. There was a 4th, 5th. I didn't even notice this thing. First, I just noticed that the alien spacecraft was not symmetrical. Another one that makes 6, and then it came back on, and then we noticed it spiraling. What's interesting is that if had this thing gone right and Starship would have progressed toward Hawaii, there would have been about an hour there. We would have had some downtime if SpaceX wouldn't have been doing anything with us. So I was going to play Kerbal, and we were going to build our own Starship Super Heavy rocket. And I did a test run the other day just to make sure like the graphics settings were right and everything. And the exact same thing happened on my first attempt. The thing just started, penciling, the rubber pencil thing, and it started flipping. So it was like a premonition. It was foreshadowing, I guess. But yeah. Like they said, think about SN8, 9, 10, whatever. It took them several attempts to actually get Starship back on the pad safely. They even landed it once. I forget which one it was, SN11 maybe, and then it blew up like 10 minutes later on the pad. It wasn't until SN15 that it landed and they were able to save the rocket. So this is to be expected, especially with the way SpaceX does things. It's all about rapid iteration, build and test as fast as you can. Let it blow up. You'll still collect that data. Use what you learn in the next rocket, which in this case will probably be Booster 9 and Starship 26. We'll see though. Kevin, are you going to go to the next attempt? I'm not going to make any promises, but it's always my intention. Yeah. So, good stuff, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in with me on Rumble today. Doggos are saying hello and goodbye as well. We'll have a SpaceX in the news tomorrow, so I'll see you guys then. Thank you, Locals members, for being here and supporting the channel. Thank you guys in the Rumbles chat for your Rumble rants. Appreciate the support. And until next time, Godspeed.